I'm sure you're aware that former President Trump put out a social media posting about you, and I want to read it because it's pretty shocking. This will be a time for all citizens of the USA to celebrate. This guy turned out to be a woke train wreck. Speaking of you, with regard to your talking to the Chinese, he said this is an act so egregious that in times gone by the punishment would have been death. A war between China and the U.S. could have been the result of this treasonous act. That's from a former commander-in-chief to a sitting chairman of the Joint Chiefs. How do you respond to that?
You know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I've served my country faithfully for 4.5 consecutive decades in peace and war, and my family has made enormous sacrifices for this country, and my mother and father before me, and grandparents before them. So I'll take a back seat to no one on loyalty to this country, and my loyalty is to the Constitution. It's to a document. It's never to an individual, and that's the loyalty of every single one of us in uniform, and we're going to maintain that loyalty to the Constitution.
But to see and to read the word treasonous, again, given your service, that's got to be a gut punch.
Well, Lester, I'm not going to respond to specific comments by former President Trump or anyone else. I'm a public figure, and I will put one step in front of the other to continue to defend that Constitution, period. Full stop.
Your legacy and Donald Trump's legacy are intertwined. Have you accepted that?
Look, I'm not the president or was the president. I'm merely an advisor to a president, to two presidents, actually. And our paths crossed. And I think that, history will obviously connect the two of us together. Sure.
Some people would say you're downplaying the significance. I mean, you became a household name in many ways because of the reported clashes between you and the then president.
Generals don't have clashes with presidents. I think some of that is overstated, frankly, about clashes like raised voices and arguments and all that kind of stuff. I rendered to President Trump just like I rendered to President Biden. I give him various courses of action and options. I explain the military costs and the military risks associated with that and make recommendations. And it's my obligation, it's my duty to do that to the president. And the president is not obligated to take that advice, but it's my duty to make sure that he gets that military advice.
A few days before the election, you were making it known that the Army, the military, would play no role in determining the outcome of the election. Why did you feel the need to say that? Was that a specific concern that you had?
I wanted to make sure it was clear to the American people, to our adversaries, to our friends and allies overseas, but also to our own force, to us wearing the uniform, that we have zero, and I mean zero, role in U.S. electoral politics.
Let me turn to China, the China spy balloon. When you first heard of that balloon and where it appeared to be heading, did it feel like an act of war against the United States?
Well, the first thing we had to do was make positive identification of it, what it was, characterize it. All of that takes a bit of time. Act of war, I wouldn't say act of war necessarily.
Did it feel like it? Did it feel like a gross violation? I
would say that we were trying to figure out exactly what it was. And what its capabilities were. And, when it's over international waters, it's certainly not an act of war. When it crossed over the Aleutian Islands for a few minutes and then came over Alaska, at that point, concerns started to get seriously raised about the collection capabilities. It didn't successfully collect anything, actually. But it was a spy balloon. It was designed to collect, but it wasn't successful in doing so.
Did it have the capacity?
Yes, it was designed to do that.
On a macro scale, though, was it a reminder of what you see as a growing Chinese threat, not only from an intelligence and espionage standpoint, but just militarily?
100%, absolutely. I think that, and that's, the balloon piece is just one of many, many indicators of increased challenge, military challenge in space and cyberspace, but also, land, sea, and air. You've got a military that we think is a near-peer competitor. They're not superior to the United States, but they're getting there, and they have their aim, their objective, is to be militarily superior to the United States within the next 10, 15 years, and certainly by mid-century. So it's a really serious national security challenge that China is. And they're not 10 feet tall. They have a lot of vulnerabilities, and they're not there yet. They're not more capable than we are yet. But they're moving in that direction. So we, the United States, have got to make sure that we don't just stand still, that we maintain our readiness, we maintain our technological improvements, and that we prepare for a future operating environment that we may encounter at some point in time.
Let me ask you about Afghanistan. You were very clear you recommended another way to end the U.S. involvement in Afghanistan. The president went his way, and you took that order. We all know what happened, how ugly it turned out, the loss of 13 American lives. Has anyone been held accountable to what went wrong with the Afghanistan withdrawal?
Well, if you mean has anyone been specifically punished in some way, no, but look at Lester. That war didn't end the way anybody wanted it to end. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that thousands of people, from privates to generals to people in the interagency, did their very best that they could under the circumstances to make sure that we executed the president's orders. You know, wars don't end because of events in the last 10 or 15 days. Any war is the cumulative effect of many, many decisions along the way. This is a 20-year war. There were decisions made over 20 years that landed us where we did.
Do you find yourself going over the process, though, and thinking that maybe you should have been more forceful in selling an alternative to what we saw?
Well, I can tell you there were very forceful discussions, and I won't go over all the details of it, but there were very forceful discussions, and I will also say that the president was inaugurated on the 20th of January. And from 20 January to 14 April, when he made an announcement of what his decision was, there was an enormous amount of very rigorous debate by a lot of people on various angles and opinions on what to do, how to do it. That was really debated hard by a lot of people with a lot of good knowledge, a lot of smart people trying to do the right thing.
Nightly Films is sponsored by Pfizer.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.